back with Mike and Lisa, and today, last time we talked about just communication at home. Today we're going to talk about communication when you guys are deployed and when you're away from home. So what challenges come in communicating during deployment?
None.
Oh.
Well, first and foremost is just distance. Distance is a challenge. Time change, the difference in the time, those are obvious ones. But how they play out is what's not so obvious. Just recently with time change in the spring when he was deployed, the hour difference made such a difference for us that it was almost where we just couldn't get back on the same page there for about a month because of that shift. And you wouldn't think that an hour would actually make that much difference, but it's just the flip of your days. I'm in the middle of my day when his day's winding down, and I think that surprisingly is a bigger challenge than you don't really think about it going into it, that would actually cause a challenge, but it does. So that's one, and I probably have a few more, but go ahead.
I think what we did well is the time I was waking up, she was winding down or getting ready to go to bed, so I was very deliberate in either getting up just a little bit earlier, but I'm getting up. I'm a morning person, so I'm full of energy. She's not a morning person, so her nighttime, she's trying to wind down, and I'm bringing a lot of energy into it. So recognizing that was tough. And on the flip side, you know, we try and talk when she's waking up and I'm going to bed. Well, she's trying to get out the door and grab Nate and stuff that's going on. So, but I think we made it work pretty well.
What was the time difference?
It was 8 to 9 and 10. Yeah, 9 and 10.
Where were you this time, Mike?
Kabul, Afghanistan. Yeah, and I think one of the things that we did well is early on we decided there's an app that you can basically share notes, and we would ask each other questions throughout. And I think we got up to 27 questions, just stuff to think about. You know, that if we were sitting together, I think the response wouldn't have been as deeply thought. For example, what's your goal for the next 5 years? You know, well, we just don't sit around and go, hey, what's your goal for the next 5 years? Right. So, and we date them, what date we talked them, and just questions like that. And they got pretty good, pretty well thought out questions. So I think that helped us open up communication more.
Yeah, and took it to more depth, more deep communication than just a little bit more than how was your day and this kind of thing.
Right. I think another challenge with communication is depending upon where he is, and really any time, I can never just pick up the phone and call him like I would if he were here. If something's happening or if there's a stressful situation and I just need to process it, I can't just pick up the phone and call him and do that. And he would be the first person that I would do that with. Sure. So that is a challenge in the fact that it's, and he probably can't pick up the phone either when something's happening and just call me, even though he has to initiate most of the phone calls just because of the nature of the deployment. I could call and leave messages, you know, but it's not the same if you're having a tough day or if there's really something to share. Because you have somebody that you talk to, you have somebody that you're calling, and he's my first person to do that with. And if that's not available, that creates a challenge.
Yeah, and I would think that's a pretty common thing that a lot of wives go through. So how did you adjust to that?
Well, some of it is writing it out so that he does see it when he can see it. Okay. And that shared note is one of those ways, because it's just a shared note on our phones that while he's on Wi-Fi, he could connect to it and see it. Sometimes it's an email because I know that he might get that faster. Those things kind of help me be able to at least get the word out.
Yeah.
And then I know that he knows, and then I have a good friend of mine that would be the next person that I would talk to. And so it's tough to get it out verbally.
Exactly. No, I think that's good, and I think that app, things like that would be really helpful because I think it's important. Instead of having to sit on it for 8 or 9 hours, you're able to at least get it out there. And then you can read it and then respond, that kind of thing. How do you avoid miscommunication? when you're all that far apart? Mike?
Ooh, I think part of being able to avoid it is because of the time difference. We can really think out the communication piece, or hey, here's what we need to do, or here's some things that are coming up. We deliberately have to think through it, as opposed to just capturing an idea, putting it aside, and then making the call. I mean, you're like, oh well, hey, maybe I think it allows us that time to really process some things through. Where normally, if it would have been a quick phone call, maybe we're more independent in the initial thought process, but then joint when we get on the phone and talk about it. So we probably work through things a little bit smoother.
But you're real intentional about that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What do you think, Lisa?
I think he's spot on with that. I think miscommunication could happen if I were to pick up the phone at every second and call and vent about something, or any of that, but the distance actually creates a space for pause and creates that space to think through it a little bit, because there were things that could have been miscommunicated, and we had a few of those through the deployment for sure, times where I was unloaded on or I unloaded upon him, and it could come across as miscommunication. But at the beginning, there's an understanding of the pressures that both of us are under through the distance that can also cover it, kind of like Grace covers it, of there's nothing that is going to be super clear whenever we're communicating stress or when we're communicating anything that he can't sit through the last 8 hours or the last 12 hours and understand where I am with what I'm trying to express, and vice versa. I don't know what just happened in that world for the past 12 hours that could be. And so there's a lot of just realizing that up front and being humble enough to just say, this is the reality in which we are living in right now. He's not going to mean it that way. Just having that filter for the situation and for the circumstances that we're under, to filter both of our responses and our outward processing. I think that you just have to do that.
No, I think that makes so much sense. And so there, we talked about how important last time when communication is when you're home and at 10 plus, Mike said. So when it's distance, it's still important, but it's like there's a little bit more intentionality, it sounds like, as you guys would say.
So,
Like I said, of those 27 questions, we may have touched on a couple of them if we would have been side by side for that year, but just really well thought out. We appreciate the time we're able to talk together when we are able to. I look forward to finally coming up onto Wi-Fi somewhere and see, oh wow, there's a Marco Polo, and then see the message it came across on that app, or kind of that excitement of, you just don't take for granted, oh, I'll be home tonight, oh, I touched her again, oh, you know what I mean? Those things become very cherished at that point.
Yeah, I would think so. And really, you guys really connected well, really grew during that time by being
through
intentional
each one
with
of
it.
them.
Yeah.
I would have to say that we learned to communicate better and in different ways because of the deployment. It actually helps, and I think it actually grows us. We change because we're apart for a year. We both change, but we can kind of see where we've grown together through that too.
Yes.
So,
I think
with that intentionality.
Yeah, it's key to make it a point. I mean, you have to be very deliberate to, when you're apart, it could easily erode, or if you're like, hey, I'm going to make it better, and we're both focused on it, and I think we were both very focused on, our communication is going to get better when we're apart. Then the easy answer is, I won't text as much, I won't call when I can, I won't send an email, I won't blah, blah, blah. Unfortunately, Lisa's very good at sending notes and cards and things like that. So all those things are important.
That's good. Thanks.